Okay, so we're going to get started. For those that are joining us for the first time today, welcome to the Seaver Autism Center's COVID-19 Parent and Caregiver webinars. For those that are returning, welcome back. We are going to use a similar format to the past 4 webinars in that I will present for about 20 minutes on today's topic, which will be targeting social skills at home. And then we'll leave a lot of time for questions and concerns. We have the Zoom chat feature opened. So if you go to the bottom of the screen, there's a thought bubble or a speech bubble that says chat. Feel free to enter any questions or comments that you have, and we will definitely try to address everybody's questions or concerns. We are also creating content each week based on kind of feedback from our audience. So if there are specific topics that you feel like you're struggling with or would like input from a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist specializing in autism, please give us your suggestions and we will do our best to address them in future webinars. All of our slides from the past 4 webinars and hopefully for this webinar should be up on our website. We are still working on getting the actual recordings of the webinars. Hopefully that will be coming. So for today's talk, I'm going to talk about some general strategies for teaching any social skill at home, and then I'm going to cover some specific social skills that you might be wanting to address at home and some activities that you can do. And as I mentioned, we will always have a Q&A just because we do recognize that this is a challenging time for all of us, and we want to be a resource for you. So my name is Michelle Gorenstein. I am a clinical psychologist at the Seaver Autism Center and also the Director of Outreach. And I am excited to talk about social skills because that is actually the focus of my position. And I spend most of my time in community centers around the tri-state area, helping community centers develop more effective social skills for children, teens, and young adults on the autism spectrum. So when we start thinking about targeting social skills at home, it can feel very, very overwhelming. The first strategy I'd recommend is contacting your child's teacher, occupational therapist, or speech therapist or counselor to find out what exactly they were working on in school. We are going to want to focus on one skill at a time. So if we try to work on every social skill or social skills deficit that we see come up, we're going to be feeling overwhelmed, our child is going to be feeling overwhelmed, and we're not going to have much success. So we really want to think about what is the skill that we want to work on right now and how can we target that one specific skill. When we're thinking about skills, we want to think about chronological age and developmental age. So if I am working with a 16-year-old who's never really developed pretend play skills, I still might not target that, even though developmentally that might be where they are if they're going to a high school and no other students are doing pretend play. We might think about what they need at that point in time to be successful in their social environment. Which brings me to the next thing to think about. What skills are needed right now? So as psychologists, speech therapists, social workers, all of us are trying to adapt the social skills that we were teaching, let's say, 3 months ago to the social skills needed right now. And they're very, very different skill set. So what once was asking a friend to play with me on a playground might now become how to interact with somebody over Zoom, how to use the hand raising features or the chat features, or not to be blurting out when our friends are talking. So thinking about what skills your child needs right now to be successful in their social environment. So that might be more social skills related to siblings or related to privacy, thinking about what is critical at the moment. One thing that when I'm talking to caregivers or individuals not as familiar with working with kids or adults on the autism spectrum disorder, I like to talk about autism spectrum disorder as a social learning disability. And that kind of reframes how we teach. So the idea is that just like a child who has a reading disability or a math disability, it doesn't mean that they can't learn those things. It means that we have to teach them in a different way. So we want to think about what is the specific deficit that the child is having. Is it that the child is not attending to people's facial expressions? Is it that they're not listening to what other people are saying? Is it that they're not waiting their turn? So thinking about what is the kind of critical deficit and targeting that deficit. And most of us, not on the spectrum, learn social skills by just watching other people and trial and error. We know that is not how kids on the spectrum are going to learn social skills. We need to think creatively about targeting social skills. And we need to teach to the deficit the same way that you would teach to a child who has dyslexia or a traditional learning disability. We're going to want to break up abstract concepts into concrete steps. So when we think about social skills, a lot of things are very abstract. So theory of mind, personal space, staying on topic. Those are not kind of very explicit things that a child can touch or feel. They're concepts, and we need to think about how can we break that down into smaller pieces. So hopefully with kind of some of these core things in your mind, you can think about what are the skills that your child is struggling with, what are kind of the critical skills you need to work on, and think about how we can teach that deficit by breaking things down into concrete steps. So some general strategies are going to be, as for those that have been to our other 4 webinars, some of this is going to be familiar. Use a lot of visual supports and concrete steps. And those might be in the form of prompt cards, which I'll show you examples of in the next slide. Social stories, which were developed by Carol Gray, which I'll also show you. And comic strip conversations, which I'll show you. You're going to think about, for some skills, you might be baiting the skill. So setting up situations where the child is going to have to utilize the skill. So one thing that we bait a lot is related to sportsmanship. So if you're working on being a good sport, you might play games where the child is going to win to work on not bragging, and set up situations where the child is going to lose to work on kind of dealing with losing and kind of emotion regulation. If you're working on eye contact, you might set up situations where you're going to be putting things near your eyes for the child to request. So setting up situations that are going to encourage them to utilize the skill. And most importantly, as we've also discussed, is when the child does engage in the desired behavior or give the expected response, giving the child a lot of praise and very specific praise. So I love how you just looked me in the eyes when you were speaking to me. Or I love that when we're playing chutes and ladders and you had to go down, you were able to stay calm. So being very, very specific in kind of the praise that we're giving so the child knows exactly what we're encouraging. So just some examples of visual strategies, and for children who have less language, visual strategies might come in the form of kind of hand gestures. So on a very basic level, if somebody's learning to wait their turn, you can have a visual like this, or you could do stop, wait, my turn, stop, wait, your turn. And you would kind of use those gestures when playing a game, when having conversations, and in any situation where the individual is going to have to learn. And the idea is you're going to start with a lot of prompts, and then maybe you would, as the child gains that skill, it might just be a simple visual prompt of like a stop. Would encourage them to stop and wait. These are things, some of them are things I've created. Some of them are things that I found online. There's a visual prompt for rules for a board game. Here's one that I found on rules for distance learning. So be on time, talking about kind of sitting still, stay in one place. Here's a visual prompt that I use about regulating your volume. So this is where talking to your child's school, day program, finding out what language they use can also be helpful. So in my groups, we use a scale of 1 through 5, but I've been in other school classes where a 0 means silent and a 4 is yelling. So we want to also be consistent, because as you can imagine, it would be very confusing if I'm saying 5 is an outdoor voice or screaming in an emergency, but their school is using different language. So I do recommend everybody, if this is something that you are working on with your child, reach out to your child's team and find out if they're using any strategies at school and what the language is. Here are some visual strategies. So as we've mentioned, social stories are really effective strategies for helping individuals deal with change, telling them what is going to be expected. They were originally designed to teach social skills. Research shows that they're not as effective at teaching social skills as they are at reducing problem behaviors. But as you can imagine, with tele-learning and potentially teletherapy, there might also be some behaviors that are coming out more related to anxiety. So if we can give individuals an idea of what is going to be expected, that can reinforce some of the social skills that they're expected to be doing during that time period, while also reducing anxiety. So Carol Gray has a social story book, but I do encourage you, if you type in a lot of things on Google, you can find already made social stories for free. On Carol Gray's website, she does have several social stories available for free related to COVID-19 that you can definitely check out. Another strategy developed by Carol Gray was comic strip conversations. Tony Atwood also utilizes this strategy. This is a great strategy for children who are verbal but might not be able to articulate their thoughts and feelings so well. And the idea is you could use this to pre-teach a skill. So if you're teaching, greeting somebody hello, or making small talk, you can kind of create a comic strip as to what people might say or might think. I also use this strategy a lot after an event to dissect what people said or thought, and maybe where we made a thinking mistake, or if there was something we could have said differently. So I've worked with a lot of individuals who are very artistic and create very elaborate comic strips. You can do stick figures. There are also tools available online for free if you type in free comic strip makers for kids that are more tech savvy. I also, when I started doing this and newspapers were more popular, would take a newspaper and erase or black out the speech and thought bubbles, and we would work on, okay, if this was happening, what might people be thinking, what might people be saying? So there are lots of ways to use comic strip conversations to work on social skills. So those are just some very basic strategies for teaching any social skill. Now I'm going to go through some specific skills and games that you can practice. So listening is a big one, not only for small children, but also for adults. We all struggle with listening sometimes. So there are some popular games that encourage listening. Board games such as Guess Who, Battleship, the popular board game now, Zingo, or what used to be called more Bingo, are great ways to encourage listening. And if we're encouraging listening, we might not be showing the item. So for Bingo typically, or Zingo, we would show the card and say like B12. If we're really encouraging kids to just listen, we might not show them to encourage them really to pay attention with their ears. Games such as Simon Says, the telephone game where you whisper something and you have to get it all the way around, encourage listening. And they could start off very simply. So for Simon Says, that would be going very slowly. For the telephone game, it might be saying one word, a very simple word like dog, and seeing if it could go around the circle. as we get better, or if we're wanting to work on it a little harder, we can say longer sentences for the telephone game, or kind of do at a faster rate for Simon Says. The clapping game is a great game that doesn't require any materials, and I've had teens requesting that we do it. So the idea is that you pick a target word and you say a lot of words together, and whenever they hear the target word, they have to clap. And for all individuals that I do this game with, they also enjoy then picking the target word. The target word could be related to their restricted interest. I've done Pokemon characters where I've had to kind of research a lot of different characters, and they only clap when you say the specific character that they've listed. For kids that need it to be trickier, you're going to go at a faster rate. You're also going to then put words that sound similar. So if the word was bat, you might say cat, bar, bat, where they kind of are going to have to pay attention to those small kind of nuances. So those are just some popular games to practice listening. So the idea would be, if we were targeting listening, you might make a visual about whole body listening that we would put up somewhere. So when we listen with our ears that we hear, we listen with our mouth, we have a quiet mouth, we listen with our brain, we think about what it's saying, and we listen with our body by having a calm body. And we might go over that a few times, and then we would bait the skill by playing games that practice the skill. And we would reinforce whenever we saw the child listening, whether it was part of the game, or especially when they're listening during a less structured time. So for kids that are nonverbal, or for kids that you want to work on either paying attention to eye contact, or kind of gestures, facial expressions, charades is a great one. We do this with our younger children, more related to animals, so acting out animals. For our older children, we start acting out more actions, such as like mixing cookies, or brushing your teeth. And then for our teens and even our adults, we focus more on emotion charades. So having individuals act out emotions and having you guess, as well as having them guess you're acting it out. And that encourages people to be looking at nonverbal cues, facial expressions, body gestures, and especially for the emotion charades, it also gives individuals a sense of whether their emotions, how they're displaying emotions, is what their intent is. The opposite of Simon Says is Simon Does. So rather than listening, they're going to be watching you. So the idea is Simon says, touch your stomach, but you're touching your head, and you'd want the individual to follow what you're doing, not what you're saying. Very basic for younger children. A very great way to encourage nonverbal communication is through finger play. So these are those songs that also go with a gesture. So the Itsy Bitsy Spider, the wheels on the bus, open, shut them. And the nice thing about a lot of these is if you go on to YouTube, you can find people singing them if you don't have, if you're not comfortable singing them or doing the gestures. And especially if you type in kind of with added visual supports, there are finger play songs available on YouTube that also incorporate a lot of extra visual supports. And if your child has difficulty with this, you would start with doing hand over hand. So like helping your child do wheels on the bus, then slowly moving away from hand over hand, maybe you doing it in front of them while the song is playing with a visual, and slowly building in finger play songs into your routine. The last activity to encourage nonverbal communication is a game that we take from RDI called Follow My Eyes to the Prize. And in this game, you would hide typically prizes or things that the child are going to be interested in, whether it's a sticker, whether it's a favorite toy that might be hiding, whether it's a Hershey Kiss. And without using your speech, you are going to direct the child to the object. So you would look at the child and then look at the object and look back at the child. You could say yes or no if if this is a real struggle. For those individuals that are a little more advanced, rather than using yes or no, you would use your head, yes or no, depending if they're hot or cold. And when the child finds the object, obviously that's a reinforcement. And you can make it obviously tricky based on where you hide things, or very simple, where it would just be kind of following the orientation of your head to get the child to look. But that is a very popular game at the Seaver Center. For conversation skills, it's important that we don't just say, okay, we're targeting conversation skills this week. Conversation skills have so many pieces in them. So this is where kind of really breaking things down into small pieces is critical. So when it comes to initiating a conversation, is that making small talk, or is that initiating a conversation with a family member? Asking questions, making comments. So we work with some kids who are great at asking questions and interrogating people, but then it's not really reciprocal. Or we work with individuals who make lots of comments and relate back everything to themselves or their own interest, and they're not asking questions. So one strategy would be to have index cards that say, ask a question, make a comment, and you would hand the child the index card, depending on what skill you're working on, to encourage individuals to ask questions and make comments. Staying on topic is a big one. So thinking about what goes into staying on topic, that also requires people to listen and attend. Ending a conversation, if you have a child who, when they're done talking to grandma, just hangs up the phone or walks away, or on a Zoom call, just leaves the room when they're had enough, maybe talking about like how we end a Zoom call. Maybe we wave goodbye, or we wait to the teacher to say, okay, the Zoom call is over. Thinking about sensitive topics. So all of us are at home, we're doing a lot via Zoom or Google Chat, and we're seeing people's homes or seeing things. Maybe talking about what topics we don't bring up. If we don't like the color of somebody's room, we're not going to message that to them like, why is your room purple? So kind of, I just broke it down. We can break it down into even more things. But when we think about some of these larger skills, we want to really think about very, very specific things that can be taught using concrete steps. So when we are working on conversation skills, there's lots of ways that we can work on them. One of them is role playing. So being very specific in the role plays, because when you think about the conversation skills, how they talk to their teacher and how they talk to their best friend is going to be very different than how they talk to the person delivering the mail or the grocery store clerk. So kind of being very specific in the role plays and practicing beforehand. So if you are setting up a phone call with their close friend from school, you might practice. Okay, so we are calling Jimmy today. What things does Jimmy like to talk about? What questions could you ask Jimmy, since we haven't seen him for 7 weeks now? What things do you guys have in common that could be a good conversation? What could you share about that topic during the phone call? So kind of for a child who is reading or does better with visuals, maybe having pictures or words to help the child remember those things. I try to stay away from like full-on scripts. And the reason being, we can't control other people. And that's what makes social skills so challenging, because you might come up with a script for the child, but maybe Jimmy, who normally likes to talk about Minecraft, doesn't want to talk about Minecraft that day. So we don't want to have a script that we have to follow kind of from start to finish. We want to give ideas, but also create some flexibility in our social narratives. After we call or FaceTime a relative or a friend, we're going to do a social autopsy. And that's where we can do the comic strip conversations or really dissect, okay, what went really well? Well, I love how you asked Jimmy how his weekend was. I loved that you were looking at the camera and you were having a calm body, like we talked about. But I did hear that you were talking for a few minutes about your favorite topic and not really asking Jimmy. So maybe next time, here's what we could do. And doing that in a really supportive, non-judgmental way is going to go a really long way. Some basic conversation skill games, conversation Jenga. So if you have Jenga, writing questions on each piece, and when you pull the piece, you have to answer the question. That's a fun way. Having conversation dice. So a lot of schools or therapists use conversation balls or conversation dice that they purchase through Amazon. I encourage families to make them at home. You can use a tissue box, and on each side of the box, put a different topic. And as you roll the tissue box, you have to talk about the topic. If you have a beach ball, you can write down conversation starters on the beach ball, and where your thumb lands when you catch it, that's the topic you share. So those are some ways to encourage conversations at home. The last topic that I'm going to talk about, and these are going to be more for adolescents and adults, is theory of mind. So theory of mind is the idea that I can have certain thoughts and you can have certain thoughts. And in order to respond, it's important that I try to understand what other people are feeling and thinking. You can start this with kids, but typically this is a skill that we don't expect to see until children are kind of late elementary school, early middle school. So we would not expect a 4-year-old to have theory of mind, but you can start encouraging it. And I'm going to talk about some ways to do that. So while you're watching a TV show, pausing it and say, what is the character feeling and what is the character thinking? We always start with feeling, because if you don't get the feeling, you're probably not going to get the thought right. And we tell what people are feeling by looking at their facial expression, looking at their body language, looking at what's happening around them, asking ourselves, what would I be feeling if I were that person? And then we get to the thought. What is the person thinking? And the distinction I always like to make is feeling is going to be one word. If we start having a lot of words, that's not a feeling, that's a thought. We could also do the same thing while we're reading a book. And this is a lot of times what speech therapists, especially if your child is working on pragmatic language, they're doing. So they're going to be reading something, they're going to be pausing and saying, what is the character feeling? What is the character thinking? How do you know that? If the child says something that's not related to the book, you could say, well, why did you think that? Well, I noticed that the character has a frown, that they're kind of left alone. So I think maybe the character is feeling sad. Do you think that could be true? One show that I use a lot with all of my teens and adults is The Big Bang Theory, and kind of talking about things that Sheldon does that was expected or unexpected. But you can almost use any TV show, any movie. This is where I encourage you to use the child's interest to kind of keep them motivated. I will say doing this with characters like SpongeBob is more challenging. So we do try to do it to kind of people or people comic cartoons. Just some resources. PBS Kids has a tab called Social Skills, and it does have social skills videos, activities from Daniel Tiger, Sesame Street. They're probably going to be more geared towards young children. Do to Learn is a fabulous resource that has tons of social skills visuals and supports. They also have an employment social skills tab. Everyday Speech is a great group. They do charge for their video library, but if you go on YouTube and type in everyday speech and a specific social skill like asking to play, there are a lot of free videos. Michelle Garcia Winner, who does a lot of social thinking. So if your child is in the New York City Nest program or Learning Spring, they utilize Michelle Garcia Winner. I believe as of today, she has made a lot of her content free as well. So there are definitely resources, but I do encourage parents to be creative, caregivers to be creative. You guys know your child best. You're going to know what motivates them. And again, this should be fun while it is related to some of the things they were working on in school. We don't want this to be kind of sitting and doing worksheets. We want it to be practical things and things that they're practicing and with other people. So that is the talk for today. I hope you enjoyed, and learned something that you could take home with you. I'm now gonna open, oh, I see Learning Spring is here. Well, welcome Learning Spring. Um, I now encourage you all to email or type in questions that you have to the chat, and we are definitely happy to answer them.